The old Miller house had been a sore on our family for 20 years. Not the structure itself, a once handsome Victorian, now weeping paint and shrouded in ivy, but the silence that festered within it. It stood right next to our own, separated by a narrow weed-choked lane and a chasm of pure hatred. The feud started with our grandfathers, a dispute over a sliver of land that everyone but them knew was worthless. It was a stupid argument that hardened into a family creed. We do not speak to the Millers. We do not look at the Millers. The Millers are poison. I was 8 when it began. I remember my dad, a gentleman, coming home white-faced after a shouting match with old Thomas Miller. "He'll get his," Dad had muttered, his hand shaking as he poured a whiskey. Karma's a patient woman. He died 5 years later, the doctor said, from a weak heart. My mother always said it was from a broken one, fractured by the bitterness next door. I tried to move on. I built a life in the city, came home for holidays, and watched my mother grow frail in that big, quiet house. The Millers became ghosts to me, figures I'd glimpsed through a dusty window, their presence a low hum of animosity in the background of my life. Everything changed the week my mother passed. I was clearing out her things, my grief a heavy physical weight, when I found the box. It was tucked deep in the back of her closet, behind a lifetime of forgotten shoes. It wasn't one of hers. It was a metal lockbox, and scrawled on its side in faded black marker was the name Thomas. My blood ran cold. With a sense of trespass that felt both terrifying and inevitable, I pried it open. There were no stacks of cash, no secret deeds, just a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, and a single yellowed photograph. The photo was of my father and Thomas Miller, young, their arms slung around each other's shoulders, grinning like fools in front of a half-built barn. They looked like brothers. My hands trembled as I untied the letters. They weren't love letters. They were confessions. They were a chronicle of a partnership, not a feud. My father and Thomas had been best friends, and they'd secretly bought a huge parcel of land together, a speculative investment they were certain would make them both rich. The letters detailed their plans, their dreams for their families. And then, in the last letter, dated a month before their fight, the truth came out. It was from Thomas to my father. "I'm so sorry, John," it read. "The pressure from Helen is too much. She says we can't trust a shared fortune. She's drawn up papers, says it's for the best. She made me forge your signature on the sale documents. We sold your half. The money is all gone, lost on another of her brother's fool schemes. She says if I ever tell you, she'll take the kids and leave me with nothing. What have I done? John, what have I done?" I read the words over and over, the paper crinkling in my clenched fist. It wasn't a feud. It was a theft, a betrayal. Thomas's wife Helen had orchestrated it all. She'd stolen my father's future, poisoned the well of their friendship to cover her tracks, and let the lie of a land dispute fester for 2 decades. My father didn't die of a weak heart. He died of a stolen one, believing his best friend had betrayed him for a patch of dirt. The Millers hadn't just been our enemies. They were thieves who had gotten away with it. A cold, clear fury settled in my bones, washing away the grief. Karma might be patient, but I was my father's son, and I was done waiting. I didn't confront them, not directly. That would have been too clean, too quick. I bided my time. I went back to my life. But now my focus was razor sharp. I hired a discreet investigator. I learned everything about the Millers. Their son Mark was a middling real estate agent with a gambling problem. Helen, now a widow, was a pillar of the local church, her reputation her most prized possession, and their daughter Sarah was applying for a prestigious security-cleared government job. The revenge wasn't going to be a knife in the dark. It was going to be the truth, delivered like a bomb at the perfect moment. The opportunity came a year later. The old Miller property, the symbol of their ill-gotten gains, was finally being sold. Mark was handling the sale, a last-ditch effort to clear his debts. The buyer was a faceless development corporation, and the closing was set for a Friday at the town law office. I arrived just as they were finishing. Helen Miller was there, dressed in a prim suit, signing the papers with a smug, satisfied smile. Mark was practically vibrating with relief. Sarah was on speakerphone, her tinny voice congratulating them from Washington. The lawyer was sliding the hefty check across the table when I walked in. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice calm, conversational. All eyes turned to me. Helen's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of disdain. What could you possibly want?" "I just came to deliver a late wedding gift," I said, placing a simple, expensive-looking envelope on the table next to the check. "It's for the happy union of our families. Or, more accurately, for the partnership between John Miller and Thomas Miller." Helen's face went pale. "Get out or I will," I said. "But first I thought everyone should have a copy." I opened the envelope and slid out the stack of documents. Not the originals. I kept those safe but pristine, notarized copies of every letter, every word of Thomas's desperate confession. I handed one to the lawyer, one to Mark, and placed one directly in front of Helen. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the rustle of paper. Mark's face morphed from confusion to dawning horror as he read. On the speakerphone, Sarah's voice, small and confused, asked, "Mom, what is this? What's he talking about?" Helen didn't answer. She was staring at the photocopy of her husband's handwriting, her hands trembling so violently the paper rattled. The carefully constructed fortress of her life was crumbling around her with every word. The sale of this property, I said, my gaze locked on Helen, is based on a fraudulent foundation. The initial capital used to secure it was stolen from my father. This isn't a celebration. It's the final act of a decades-old crime. I looked at the lawyer. I'm sure the title company will be very interested in this. And the IRS, regarding the source of funds. And you, Sarah, I said, raising my voice slightly toward the phone. I've already sent a copy to your ethics board. I'm sure they'll understand that a security clearance is difficult to maintain when your family's fortune is built on forgery and theft. The chaos erupted. Mark was shouting. Sarah was crying over the phone. The lawyer was frantically gathering his papers. But I only watched Helen. The color had drained completely from her face, leaving her a waxy, terrified shell. The reputation she'd spent a lifetime curating was gone. Her son's financial salvation had just evaporated. Her daughter's promising career was likely over. She had nothing. I turned and walked out, the sounds of their world shattering behind me. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a profound, weary justice. The sun felt warm on my face for the first time since my mother died. I walked across the weedy lane to our quiet, empty house, and I looked at my father's photograph on the mantelpiece. Some debts aren't paid with money, but with ruin.